Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to NASCAR weekend at Atlanta Motor Speedway. My name is David Higdon of the Integrated Marketing Communications team at NASCAR. As you know, Tony Stewart will be returning to NASCAR competition today. We'll be participating, in fact, in practice starting within the half hour at 2:30, and then we'll participate in qualifying later this evening. For this reason, we've asked our president, Mike Helton, to address the media today. Mike, thank you.
Thanks, David. I'll refer back to Steve O'Donnell's release yesterday, or a statement on behalf of NASCAR, that, as you know very clearly by now, that we have cleared Tony to return as part of the normal process when a driver has been absent from participating. It also mentioned in that release that we've been in close contact for the past several weeks with Stewart-Haas Racing, monitoring and participating in conversations. As you can imagine, once Tony was cleared to return and he decided to come back, the question goes to his possible eligibility in the chase. Before I get into that, I do want to join everybody else in the garage area welcoming Tony back. He's been a great asset to NASCAR. He's been a great champion and a great participant in our sport, so it's nice to have him back. Now back to the chase part for just a second. I'll remind everybody back earlier this year when we announced the format for the 14 chase. That announcement included some responsibility about the routine participation in the season in order to be eligible in the chase. Along with that importance of routine participation also came the asterisk, so to speak, around except in rare incidences. This has been a very unique set of circumstances to Tony and to our sport, but and as the league and our responsibility to try to make decisions that are correct and right, sometimes we evaluate circumstances that are given us and then make those decisions as correctly as we can. After evaluating the circumstances around this occurrence, we've come to the conclusion that Tony would be eligible to participate in the chase if he were to earn a spot in it. So with that, David, we can open up the floor for a few questions.
Okay, we'll start with Tom and then go to Jim. Tom Jensen, Jim, Nate Ryan.
Hi, Mike. Tom Jensen, Fox Sports 1. Yesterday in the release, Steve O'Donnell said specifically there were multiple clearances that Tony had to receive. What was the nature of those?
As typical, our process calls for us to rely on third-party experts to assure us that a NASCAR driver or a NASCAR member is ready to return. And all those forms of processes were met, and we cleared him based on those third-party inputs from experts.
We'll go to Jim, Nate Ryan, and then Ed Hitton.
Jim Utter, Charlotte Observer. Mike, as you know, when this incident first took place, there was a lot of confusion in the mainstream media over the incident, whether it involved, quote, NASCAR or you were the sanctioning body. There's a misconception that NASCAR sanctions a lot of things that it actually doesn't. And a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to clear up that misconception. By granting a waiver to Tony Stewart for something that originated by competing in another series, are you worried at all that that line may blur again between competition of what you're in control of and what someone elects to do on their own time?
I don't think so. I think our scope of responsibility is to our membership, our events. Sometimes incidents occur outside of the sanctioned event or a NASCAR sanctioned event that we have to consider in the participation of members, so I don't think so.
We'll go to Nate to Ed, and then Bob Pockras.
Nate Ryan, USA Today Sports. Mike, Tony Stewart was just in here and read a statement, obviously still pretty stricken with grief. How does NASCAR make the determination that he's ready to get back in the car? Have you talked to him? Has anybody from the organization specifically talked to him to ensure that you feel like he is mentally ready or capable to be behind the wheel?
Throughout this period of time, as Steve mentioned in his statement yesterday, NASCAR has been in constant contact with Stewart-Haas Racing. But when it comes to the assurances that a driver or a NASCAR member is ready to return, we're going to rely on outside experts.
We'll go with Ed, Bob, and then Doug Rice.
Ed Hinton, ESPN.com. Again, Mike, when you talk about outside experts, to clarify, when you in your process of evaluation, did you get psychological or psychiatric reports as part of your evaluation of Tony's eligibility for return?
We received the ones that we felt were relevant under these circumstances.
And these were from psychological professionals. How could we categorize those?
The ones that were relevant to these circumstances.
We'll go with Bob, Doug, and then we'll wrap it up with Rick.
Bob Pockras, Sporting News. The fact that the investigation into the tragedy is still ongoing, did you weigh that at all in your decision? And if for some reason Tony does actually face charges in this, would he be subject to any discipline?
We made our decisions based on the circumstances that we've got currently. And I think most everyone in this room understands that NASCAR, our effort, our scope of responsibility, and our authority is limited to the NASCAR community. And we take the current circumstances that we are dealt with and make what we hope to be the best absolute conclusion. And that's what we're talking about today, is the current set of circumstances and our reaction to them.
Okay, we'll go with Doug, Rick, and then Marty Smith will have the last question. We'll wrap it up.
Doug Rice, Performance Racing Network. Mike, can you describe as much as possible how the actual process worked to get to this point where you were able to make this announcement today?
Well, I think we have experience, and you're well aware of our policies and procedures on reinstatement when someone is absent for whatever reason it may be. So these would apply to past similar situations, except for the fact that this was very unique. And the reinstatement process doesn't begin until the competitor is ready to come back, and that's what we've been through this week.
Mike, given these unique circumstances, has there been any thought to maybe adding a 17th position to the chase? Have you had any car owners possibly suggest that?
We haven't had anyone suggest it, and that's not on the table right now. It's simply, if Tony were to earn a spot in the chase, would he be eligible to participate? And our decision currently is yes.
And we'll end with Marty Smith.
Wow. I'm not too sure about that. I about lost my lunch. Marty Smith, ESPN. Mike, you said you guys went through the whole process, and the third-party individuals with whom you spoke made it clear Tony could be reinstated. How hard was the decision? Was the evidence or the information overwhelmingly easy or not?
I don't know if we could categorize the ease of it. This was a very challenging, a very unique situation, and I think the earlier press conference with Tony's statement that he read was evidence of how overwhelming these set of circumstances have been. And I think particularly those of us that follow this sport every weekend knows that drivers' healing processes are unique, but they are race car drivers, and a lot of times getting back in a race car is something they shoot to do as quickly as they can. So once Tony decided to come back, we then had to go through the policies and the procedures and the steps that we've historically built over time to make the absolute most correct decision we could make under the circumstances we're handed.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time.